The purpose of this report is to offer a solution to the coming crisis with the nursing shortage. Though decades long, the shortage of nurses is being compounded with baby boomers retiring at a rate of 10,000 per day and limited millennials replenishing their ranks. The plan introduced within this report offers a radical departure from conventional thinking in that the solution involves developing a split retirement system for soon-to-be retiring baby boomer nurses for greater retention purposes. Furthermore, this plan offers a course of action in the recruitment of millennials to replace the vacancies created by retiring baby boomer nurses. With organizations experiencing huge monetary losses in replacing experienced hospital nurses, this plan provides a solution that will reduce the turnover rate of nurses in healthcare, transfers a solid knowledge base to new nurses, increases value-added training, reduces organizational costs, and incentivizes millennials to look to healthcare as a viable career path. Nurse retention and turnover rates are a constant challenge that healthcare organizations face on a daily basis. To confront the challenges associated with retention and turnover, many organizations focus their efforts on prevention to ensure their departments maintain a proper mix of skilled staff to properly treat patients. However, compounding the existing recruiting and retention problem is the rate at which baby boomers, currently the largest employed population, are retiring from the healthcare industry versus the rate at which millennials, the largest growing population, are replacing them. One way to illustrate the loss of a clinically trained asset in a healthcare organization is through the costs associated with it. Punk stated the average cost of nursing turnover per person is between $36,000 and $57,000. Currently, healthcare ranks third in the nation at a 13% turnover out of the top 3 industries overall. Moreover, registered nurse vacancies continue to trend negatively, with a third of the hospitals, 32.9%, reporting vacancy rates of 10% or greater. Nevertheless, the crisis for retention and turnover is expected to grow. In a time when the healthcare industry is already battling a nationwide nursing shortage, there comes an increasing criticality in the recruitment and retention of the healthcare staff across a multi-generational workforce, specifically between baby boomers and millennials. With chronologically gifted individuals entering or nearing retirement, hospitals are facing even greater shortages of personnel in critical career fields. The average age for personnel such as doctors and nurses is between 50 and 54 years old. They currently control and will continue to control a dominating number of positions within the workforce for the next few years, but those numbers are rapidly dwindling. Alternatively, millennials, the largest growing population, are not replacing these numbers in hospitals at a suitably sustainable rate. West, Griffith, and Ifofen stated that public image distortion, negative work environments, an aging workforce, and a diminishing conduit of nursing students have, historically, been the major contributors for the continual nursing shortage. However, there is another factor that healthcare must overcome to bolster their numbers in the coming years: the millennial mindset. In a recent report in the Washington Times, Jubenville reported the millennial mindset to be geared more towards that of an entrepreneur, where control is key and work-life balance offers a greater return on their investment than that offered by the current 40-plus hour work week. In contrast, baby boomers and retirees grew up with a belief in the continuity of a productive lifestyle even beyond retirement. This has led to many baby boomers volunteering their time and picking up part-time jobs out of boredom to make ends meet or simply to continue contributing to something bigger than themselves. Throughout history, nurse shortages have come and gone and are usually perpetuated in a revolving cycle, especially since World War II. Though each one has had their own factors for occurring, there are striking similarities within each shortage, both in their reasons for why they happen and the strategies used to address them. For example, one of the first strategies used to address nursing shortages is to attempt to increase the supply of nurses by accepting more students in nurse curriculums. Yet this strategy relies on having an abundance of healthcare educators to train an increasing number of students, which is in short supply in their own right. To illustrate this point, a 2013 report from the American Association of Colleges of Nursing reported a total of 277,000 applicants for entry-level bachelor nursing programs. However, due to cited budgetary constraints, limited clinical rotation sites, and faculty shortages of instructors, 154,000 applicants were turned away, meaning only a little more than 40% were accepted. Another approach that has been tried to address nursing shortages is to convey lesser duties to less formally educated personnel. Using this approach has been a force multiplier in the past for treating patients and lessens the burden on the registered nurse from becoming task saturated or experiencing burnout. The last approach has been to lessen the total training time frame required for educating new nurses, thereby producing nurses at a faster rate. However, the recent shortage appears to be unique in that the majority of healthcare needs will soon be required for those currently providing the majority of that care, baby boomers. Since baby boomers will soon be retiring in vast numbers, they will likely find themselves on the receiving end of seeking care from an ever decreasing pool of talent, almost double that of previous shortages. To illustrate, Nickman and Snell reported that the current population of 17.5 million elderly people in the United States will increase to 69 million people by 2013, which is a growth of approximately 75%. In essence, this is the main driving factor of the upcoming crisis. Subsequently, Putri reported hospitals are at a loss as to the best ways to recruit and retain millennials due to their expectations for increased scheduling flexibility to satisfy time off desires, beliefs in a group effort for completing assigned tasks, the reliance upon social media and technology, the need for frequent and instant recognition and feedback, the expectation of contributing to decision making at every level, and a preference for electronic communication with managers and supervisors. Recognizing that millennials' expectations are in stark contrast to those of baby boomers, who prefer face to face communication, value independence, and appreciate occasional public recognition, healthcare organizations are struggling to come up with ideas to replenish their ranks within this generation. Currently, healthcare organizations are in the process of exploring various options to cover gaps in staffing. As previously mentioned, some organizations are devising ways to attract and retain incoming millennials, but are having a tough time determining the best approach. Other organizations, such as the American Nurses Association, are lobbying Congress to increase funding for Title VIII of the Public Health Service Act. This act, according to Grant, allots federal grant money for nursing schools to advance nursing programs, promote diversity in the field, repay student loans for nurses who work in facilities with critical shortages, and to retain geriatric nurses. Economically speaking, the normal response for industry shortages is to raise wages for workers, yet this has not occurred in a very noticeable sense. However, there is another option that may need more exploration. From a manager's perspective, the overarching goal in staffing is to ensure there is a proper mix of skilled workers available to take care of patients. For that to occur, some managers are partnering baby boomers with newly hired millennials to help develop a solid foundation of information and to build up their skills before allowing new nurses to work alone. Managers that use this type of mentoring program to train millennials provide them with a better insight into what is required of them, enhance their skill set, and build confidence in their abilities. As a result, the turnover rate for new hires is lower than organizations or managers that do not use some type of mentoring program. Other avenues that managers are pursuing are flexible schedules. For example, schedules can reflect many different options for employee coverage, depending on the average patient acuity, and may be a simple change to accommodate new hires. In some instances, employees may prefer a 7 on, 7 off type of schedule. Others may prefer working 3 days in a row with 4 days off. Still others may prefer to work every other day. For the manager, this may be a simple accommodation to ensure shifts are covered, but may not be enough for the future. Since the persistence of the current nursing shortage has been caused by two separate issues, retiring baby boomers and millennial replacements, managers will need to be much more creative with scheduling than simply accommodating preferred off days. Though there are a number of suggested courses of action to combat this shortage, this researcher believes one of the easiest ways would be to make concessions in the current workforce versus retirement model. For example, the current retirement system is designed so that employees would retire between ages 60 and 62. However, as stated previously, many baby boomers look forward to continuing to make a contribution, at least to some degree. Alternatively, millennials have a strong desire for more time off to spend with family and friends. Thus, if organizations were to relax the rules of the current workforce model on the retirement age, even a little, baby boomers could remain employed in a quasi-retired capacity to fill in some of the gaps of the nursing shortage until replacements could be hired. In following this approach, organizations and managers would address both issues of the overall nursing shortage simultaneously. Two, this approach would satisfy the desires of both the incoming and outgoing workforce in a way that is mutually beneficial for all involved. As previously stated, the national nursing shortage will soon hit a critical state for recruitment and retention of skilled personnel across a multi-generational workforce, specifically between baby boomers and millennials. With chronologically gifted individuals entering or nearing retirement, hospitals are facing massive shortages of personnel in critical career fields. Currently, baby boomers control and will continue to control a dominating number of positions within the workforce for the next few years, but those numbers are rapidly dwindling. Alternatively, millennials, the largest growing population, are not replacing these numbers in hospitals at a suitably sustainable rate. Consequently, if the current workforce model of retiring at age 60 to 62 does not change to address this issue, there will be highly stressful and chaotic results for the aging population and administrators alike. Therefore, making concessions to scheduling now and the current retirement model could be a great opportunity for healthcare organizations to alleviate certain aspects of the coming crisis. If hospital organizations, and specifically the nursing field, are going to weather the coming storm of critical nursing shortages, it is crucial that recruitment and retention across the multi-generational workforce be addressed. Accordingly, the following questions arise. Should concessions be made with the current nursing retirement model to retain more baby boomers in the nursing field until a significant number of replacements can be recruited? Along with the inverse of that, what concessions can be made in hospital scheduling practices to entice more millennials to enter the nursing field to replace the aging workforce? As a nurse and now a manager, it is easy to see that solutions to these questions are paramount for the coming years. Therefore, the questions can become more specific and detailed by reviewing previously conducted literature to determine what has been tried in the past versus what options are still available to us. Nursing shortages have been a topic of healthcare organizations for many generations. Ledbetter reported that the nursing field has had shortages in staffing in a perpetual cycle since World War II. However, all of the shortages before the current one were able to correct themselves rather quickly. Bowerhouse and others reported that the current nursing shortage has been going on since 1998, with little expectation of improvement. Even so, the researchers may have only seen the tip of the iceberg when they made their prediction. In 2010, the Pew Research Group released a study that stated the oldest members of the baby boomer generation were celebrating their 65th birthday. They further stipulated that this trend would reoccur every day for the next 19 years at a rate of about 10,000 people per day. Comparatively, Arellano reported the same number of millennials turn age 21 each day, and are now considered the largest workforce. Nevertheless, despite the equal number of conversions occurring in the U.S. workforce, these numbers do not translate to the same statistical replenishment in the nursing field. At the time of the report from Barrhouse and others, more than 75% of RNs surveyed believed that the nursing shortage presented a major problem for the quality of their work, the quality of patient care, and the amount of time the nurse would be able to spend with the patient. Looking forward, almost all nurses surveyed saw the future as a catalyst for increased stress on nurses, 98%, lowering patient quality, 93%, and causing nurses to leave the profession, 93%. So far, the current nursing shortage has persisted for over a generation, approximately 20 years, and has remained stagnant due to the disparity between retiring baby boomers and the limited number of qualified millennial nurses entering healthcare. Proportionally, the current nursing shortage is nearing a state of crisis for appropriate staffing. Moving a decade into the future, the National Council on State Boards of Nursing reported that the number of individuals taking the NCLEX each year has steadily declined since 1994. This corresponds with a press release from the American Nurses Association in which they reported a dire need for 1.1 million nurses by 2020, only 3 years from today, and urged a 12% increase in nursing workforce developmental funding. Accordingly, the reports provide credence to the common belief in healthcare of stagnation in the recruitment of new nurses and highlight the need for retention of aging workforce. These numbers gain further credibility with nurses reporting increased workloads in all areas of care because of limited staffing and are a contributing factor to higher stress levels associated with nursing, higher turnover rates, job dissatisfaction, and occupational burnout. Carrion and Garces identified 4 main contributing factors, 3 of which are congruent with the main issues identified by this research paper that have been shown to influence the increased workloads of nurses. Number 1, an increased demand for more nurses. Number 2, an inadequate supply of new nurses. Number 3, a reduction in staffing with a corresponding increase in overtime. And number 4, a high patient turnover rate. 3 of the 4 contributing factors identified by Carrion and Garces have the potential for elimination with solutions to the main issues put forth in this research paper, the easiest of which would be to make concessions in the current workforce versus retirement model. Since the persistence of the current nursing shortage has been caused by 2 separate issues, namely retiring baby boomers and millennial replacements, organizations should take a look for more creative ways to find solutions to the shortage and lessen the workloads of the nurses. As previously put forth, there are a number of suggested courses of action to combat this shortage. The American Nurses Association suggested increased federal funding and workforce investing, bolstering the field of nursing educators to allow more nursing school applications to be accepted, and increasing the transition period for new nurses from classroom to independency in the field as a solution to the nursing shortage. However, this researcher believes one of the easiest and fastest ways to address the nursing shortage would be to make concessions in the current workforce versus retirement model. Carrion and Garces suggested that the issue of increased workloads in nursing, and by proxy the nursing shortage, should be addressed with the balance theory of Carrion and Smith. This theory follows 2 basic principles. Number 1, eliminate the source of the excessive workload, and number 2, compensate or balance the workload. Since eliminating the source of the problem, the nursing shortage, may not be a viable solution, they suggest better compensation and workload balancing should be pursued. However, option 2 will only result in another stopgap that does not solve the primary problem of the shortage. Therefore, the focus of correcting the nursing shortage should be on the first principle of the balance theory, which is eliminating the source of the problem. To eliminate the issue that is causing the nursing shortage, organizations and nurse leaders must focus on addressing 2 parts of the same problem. Number 1, changing the current retirement system to allow baby boomers the flexibility to continue working beyond the normal retirement age, but with less demands. And number two, allowing more flexibility for work-life balance with millennials. The concept behind this solution addresses two separate but equal aspirations: retention of experienced staff members and replenishing of the ranks. For example, many baby boomers look forward to continuing to make a contribution beyond retirement, at least to some degree. Alternatively, millennials have a strong desire for more time off to spend with family and friends. Thus, if organizations were to relax the rules of the current workforce model on the retirement age even a little, baby boomers could remain employed in a quasi-retired capacity to fill in some of the gaps of the nursing shortage until the replacements could be made. And following this approach, organizations and managers could address both the issue of overall nursing shortage simultaneously and ward off future events of this magnitude. Two, this approach would satisfy the desires of both the incoming and outgoing workforce in a way that is mutually beneficial for all involved. In researching this topic, many of the authors used cite just a few of the others. For example, Carry-On, Gerses, and Smith are often mentioned for their work in workforce design and patient safety. Similarly, the American Nurses Association is often cited for their work on enhancing nursing opportunities, congressional lobbying, and evidence-based practice and educational advocacy. Likewise, the Pew Research Group is referred to for statistical analysis and research of important issues. As a result of their efforts, it offered this author both validity to the posited questions and the needed resources to propose answers to the driving factors behind this paper. However, if things do not change, these questions will arise again. Like many things in life, history repeats itself. This issue is no different. It has been repeating itself in a perpetual cycle since World War II, and it will happen again in about 40 years when the millennials, the biggest working force in the U.S., will be looking towards retirement. This is why finding a solution to this problem is so important, so the problem will not come full circle and we are faced with an even bigger crisis in the future. The focus of correcting the current nursing shortage should be explored through the balance theory. Of the two principles for this theory, eliminating the problem and better compensation, finding a solution to the former over the latter will provide better results for this industry in the long run. Additionally, the author's proposed solutions brings resolution to Carry-On and Gerses contributing factors for increased workloads on nurses by eliminating 3 of the 4 contributing factors. Handled properly, changing the current workforce and retirement model to accommodate both retiring baby boomers and incoming millennials in a way that will appeal to the desires of both generations will bring resolution and closure to the current shortage. Moreover, closing the gap on the nursing shortage ensures that there will be enough experienced staff members on hand to safeguard patient safety and to provide quality nursing care. Nevedon and Erickson suggested that organizations that give attention to the employee market and understand what people are seeking from the work environment have a better chance to recruit and retain top talent. Following this advice, organizations should query current and potential employees as to what is important to them for job satisfaction and retention. For example, would more pay have any relevance on their career decisions? What about autonomy? How would flexibility in scheduling affect their decision to stay or increase recruitment? What about more training and advancement? When organizations seek and act on the answers the staff provide, it has multiple beneficial outcomes. First, the staff feel like they are being heard. Second, the organization appears to care about the staff. Third, it provides the organization with a different perspective on what is needed to recruit and retain staff. This can work in the organization's favor when approaching a soon-to-retire baby boomer about extending their stay, even if it's in a limited capacity. Moreover, it exposes ideas for prospective incentive opportunities that could be offered in the recruitment and retention of potential millennial nurses. To implement any plan that would involve changing the way the current retirement system works for exiting nurses, or offering incentives for newcomers, it would need to pass a few hurdles first. Initially, management would need to socialize the proposed changes to the next level of management and obtain their blessing to move forward with the plan, go back to the drawing board for a more workable solution, or to discontinue the effort and remain with the current status quo. Next, the plan will need to be explained to the organization's executive committee for approval. In many cases, it may be necessary to have union involvement in the plan prior to presenting the plan to the executive body, if there is a union associated with this particular hospital. This is to ensure no union rules are broken with potential changes and will allow the union the opportunity to voice any objections or suggestions for change before implementation begins. This alone may be one of the biggest hurdles to get past. Once the plan has been presented to all parties within the organization's leadership structure, the idea will need to be presented to stakeholders and donors to explain what the intent of the plan is and what it could mean to their bottom line. In doing so, this will alleviate any concerns they may have and promote buy-in for the plan. Understandably, the cost of implementing this plan will be a major concern to the executive body, stakeholders, and donors alike. Yet this plan will have little impact on overall financial distribution of funds and will maintain or increase the profitability of the hospital in the long run. Direct costs of implementing the plan should be manageable. It will involve cutting back on working hours for baby boomers who would have normally left the organization's employment and increased staffing with entry-level millennials. The trade-off of this plan is in the distribution of funds. For example, instead of paying a full retirement with baby boomers, the organization would only pay for partial retirement. The cost savings for this portion of the plan is immediate. Additionally, instead of paying a full-time baby boomer employee, which is the equivalent of $90,000 plus a year, the organization would be paying for 1 to 2 days of work at that rate, or $30,000 to $40,000 per year. This is another immediate direct cost savings. For the newcomer millennial worker, they normally start out at a much lower wage than that of the baby boomer that has been in the organization's employment for years, which is approximately $46,000 a year. The trade-off here indicates another immediate direct cost savings to the organization and is more like getting 2 employees for the pay wages of 1 baby boomer retiree. Moreover, millennials desire more free time away from work to spend with family. If this part of the plan is approved, this will constitute hiring a new employee at lower wages on a part-time basis, which is another immediate cost savings for the organization, which is approximately half of their annual wages. The indirect costs are also manageable. With the baby boomer, they would only be receiving a partial payment for their retirement until they fully retired and only a part-time wage for the time they still work. However, the organization would retain the experience that the baby boomer has accumulated over the years. Conversely, the entry-level millennial normally needs additional training before being allowed to work on their own. This means that nurse will need to be certified by the hospital in a way they can conduct business and perform certain procedures. After their initial training, the nurse will need to shadow another nurse for a few months before working on her own. This presents a wonderful opportunity to partner the baby boomer nurse with the millennial nurse to obtain training and experience that would have otherwise been lost with the retirement of the baby boomer. This translates to more savings for the organization in the form of transference of years of experience from the baby boomer to the millennial without the need for years of training and the hands-on knowledge that would have otherwise been required to increase the millennial skill base. The funding stream for this plan to be implemented does not change from what is currently at play. For example, the hospital was already going to have to pay for the baby boomer's retirement. They are currently paying her full-time wages, and they were going to have to hire another registered nurse to replace the retiring baby boomer. Implementing the aforementioned plan does not change any of the sources of funding for this plan to work, but only modifies it to a lesser degree for each funding site. This translates into the organization and stakeholders remaining on board because they are saving money. They incorporate an additional nurse virtually free of charge. They initially pay out less for retirement. They have limited the need for extended training for the new nurse due to the transference of knowledge from one person to the next, and are paying a lower overall wage for the new nurse. The sustainability of implementing this plan relies on how open retiring baby boomers are to the new plan. Without the buy-in from this group of workers, this plan has limited sustainability. However, knowing that many baby boomers desire to remain active beyond the normal retirement age provides the organization with an advantage in negotiating with boomers. As a way to sweeten the pot for boomers, the organization must explain how the retiree would benefit overall. For example, once this plan is implemented, the boomer would receive a partial payment for retirement and a partial payment for employment. This means the nurse is paid for the time that they're at work at her current wage and will receive her retirement for the days that she is not at work. Ultimately, the retiree will receive more wages in partial retirement than she would otherwise receive at full retirement. The baby boomer would be allowed to remain in this situation as long as she was able to safely work and provide care. This increases the sustainability of this plan by at least 3 to 5 years per baby boomer and provides a valid timeline to replenish the nursing ranks with millennials. With this plan, staffing needs remain at full capacity. The only exception would be for the need for remaining staff to be flexible in scheduling. For example, with the baby boomer and millennial paired up, the remaining days of the week would need to be covered by other nurses. As a proposed solution for this issue, management could offer the nurses 3 shifts in a row per week instead of working a shift such as 7 on or 7 off. Similarly, the manager might offer the boomer and millennial weekend shifts as opposed to shifts during the week. However, the problem with this offer will come for millennials that want more time off with family and friends who are more than likely to be off on weekends. Regardless, managers and staff must understand that flexibility will remain key for fulfilling shift requirements, but should be manageable in the amount of workers on hand. Training requirements will remain what they are prior to implementation of this plan. The advantage with this plan over the current standing operating procedure is the addition of mentorship from the baby boomer to the new millennial. Unless the new member is working in a highly skilled area of the hospital, there should be no need for any specialized training. However, if the new nurse is working in an area such as an intensive care unit or the emergency department, she will still receive more valuable education with a baby boomer than without. Though the new member will never learn enough from their mentorship, they will receive a vast amount of knowledge that would otherwise take years to achieve on their own. Overall, this saves money and time for the organization, increases the skill base of the new nurse, and supplements the training received at no additional cost or time. With millennials growing up in a time of technological boom, minimal training should be needed for a millennial nurse to understand and function at a high rate of capacity. The challenge with new technology increases the effects of the current staff more than the new breed of the nurse. Because the baby boomer nurse grew up in a time with more manual use equipment, the rate at which technology changes affects them more. It is the newcomer nurse that will more than likely be explaining the technology to their mentor than the other way around. Communication will play a major part in the implementation phase of this plan. Managers at all levels must promote the plan to garner buy-in from the staff. It should initially be socialized during staff meetings and at shift changes. Allow ample time for each staff member to ask questions about their options and how this benefits them as a group and individually. Provide staff members with flyers or pamphlets that will explain the program and how they can take advantage of the plan. Allow time for one-on-one time between workers and supervisors to voice any concerns over the new plan and the options available to them. At every corner, Managers must be willing to communicate the new plan and promote its finer points. In the short term, implementation of this plan will avert the coming crisis with nursing shortage. It will provide ample staff members for scheduling and shift coverage, pass on knowledge to new nurses, provide an active life for baby boomers, and, above all, maintain patient safety standards by not overburdening the staff due to shortages. In the long term, this plan can remain in place from now on and be replicated as the need arises. For example, if the organization decides to eliminate the plan once the ranks have been replenished with skilled staff members, it can do so fairly easily. If they decide to continue with this plan until all of the boomers have retired, this option will work well. Once this plan is eliminated, it can be reinstated at a later date, say when the millennials begin to retire, and pick back up right where it left off and will avert the next big nursing crisis. There is no shortage of those who will benefit from this plan. The organization will benefit by saving money and maintaining their employees. The stakeholders will benefit by increasing their bottom line due to decreased employee turnover and lower patient safety issues. The manager benefits by maintaining a fully staffed department that is skilled enough to do the job. The baby boomer benefits by remaining active, passing on her hard-earned knowledge, and actually earning more money than she would otherwise with her standard retirement. The millennial will benefit by maintaining her work-life balance, obtaining a vast knowledge base, and earning respectable wages. The patient will benefit from this plan by having a full complement of staff to attend their needs and allow an increase in the amount of time spent with each patient. With the implementation of this plan, everyone will benefit in the immediate time frame and in the future. For the long run, the healthcare field will be healthier than ever before, as far as the nursing field is concerned, due to the talent that is recruited and retained. More so, the knowledge base of older staff members will be retained and passed on, as opposed to an immediate loss of all of that experience upon retirement, providing the younger nurses with a cornucopia of information from what is learned. Once this plan is implemented and provided with a chance to become fully engaged, the first principle of Carrion and Smith's balance theory will have been accomplished. Invariably, the second principle of the balance theory will eliminate itself with the increase in staff, making the nursing field healthier and more attractive for new talent. When strategically implemented, the developer of the plan should incorporate as many people as possible, from various functionals and professional areas of work, to obtain their perspectives and ideas for the plan. With this particular plan, implementation should be socialized with the staff, other managers, the union, the executive body, and stakeholders to ensure it will be understood, accepted, and instituted with buy-in from each. The plan should be promoted at each opportunity by management and supervisors to ensure staff members are fully informed and so communication remains fluid. Though all members may not be on board with the decision to implement this plan, the benefits far outweigh the trepidations of the few. It is a robust plan that can be maintained for decades, or one that can be repealed and instituted when the needs arise. But it is the best plan to make the nursing field immediately healthy again, and it is the best opportunity to remain so in the long run. At the conclusion of this study, it is recommended that future research be conducted in this area to corroborate the validity of the previous suppositions due to the sheer size of conflicting information about the coming crisis. For example, Gogik reported 2/3 of registered nurses over the age of 54 were thinking about retirement within the next 3 years, yet Bauerhaus stated that the recession between 2007 and 2009 has greatly affected the retirement options of retiring nurses, with many delaying retirement due to monetary losses and investments. It is because of this type of contradictory information that no one person can truly estimate the scope and schedule for when nursing shortage will move into an actual crisis, nor can they say for a fact that millennials will not rise to the challenge that is ahead. One thing that is certain for the future is the indisputable eventuality that the crisis will come and the nursing field is overwhelmingly underprepared. Some of the possible barriers to implementing this plan is multifocal. For example, the plan will need to be introduced to upper management and stakeholders prior to investing a large amount of time developing the needed policies and procedures that will follow. Next would be the need to socialize the plan to other managers and potential retirees. This will need to be accomplished months in advance of a final product. Following socialization of the plan will require thorough development of the plan, with an innovative look at addressing or developing a split retirement system in which baby boomers can draw a partial retirement and still work for the same organization. Similarly, preliminary studies will need to be developed as part of the plan to encourage more employees to favorably agree with the final product. Ensuring every angle has been approached in the development of the plan, such as contracts, schedules, investments, insurance, retirement, and wage implications, will improve the chance of this plan becoming a success in retaining baby boomers beyond the normal retirement age. Additionally, the participating baby boomer nurses must understand that their role will require them to mentor newer, incoming millennial nurses with the goal of maximum transfer of experience and knowledge. With all parties agreeing to implementation of the plan, along with their input for development, many of the social barriers can be eliminated. The political barriers that need to be overcome are similar to those of the social barriers. By this it is meant that the plan, once successfully implemented, should be presented to the city council members, possibly the mayor, and county and state representatives. Providing political figures with information on the outcomes achieved at the local level will enhance the chances of this being implemented statewide and possibly nationwide. Upon first view, limitations on the scope of implementing this plan should be looked at from the perspective of the baby boomer and the millennial alike. First, how many baby boomer retirees will be willing to continue participating in healthcare once retirement age has been achieved? The early assumption is that volunteers for this plan will be limited, but may improve as time progresses. 2. What other accommodations should be offered to solidify this plan and increase participation of retiring baby boomers? What about millennials? Research has shown that millennials desire more freedom than the current norm offered within healthcare. For example, the desire for more control over their work schedules, with an abundance of off time with family and friends, are a driving factor. They also desire greater autonomy and recognition than the generations that are currently employed as nurses. Most of the desires come from the entrepreneurial mindset that is common with millennials. To that point, what other concessions will need to be made to attract more millennials to healthcare to fill the ranks of those leaving? At what point do organizations draw the line in accommodating new nurses and decide that the payout is not worth the investment? Many questions are still needed to be answered about millennials, and more research will be required in this area, more than any other, to determine how to entice millennials in the future. Further limitations will come from upper management, stakeholders, and city, county, and state representatives. From their perspectives, the plan will need to be looked at from a cost perspective when introducing the plan to this group of people. One of the biggest selling points is that this plan immediately saves money for the organizations. In essence, they will receive 2 employees for less cost than one full-time baby boomer nurse. Additionally, using this plan will limit the amount of money spent on the first few years of retirement for baby boomers. This alone could amount to millions of dollars over a span of just a few years. With proper research, quality cost-saving estimates could be provided to this group to help eliminate limitations for implementation. These are the same arguments that can be presented to the city, county, and state representatives, with the addition of continued tax revenue being achieved from baby boomer employment participation. Yet further research should be conducted in this area as well to determine the validity and cost analysis benefit to these entities.